Good morning, students. Today we will be discussing the synopsis of mechanical properties of solids. We start with definition of elasticity. The property of matter by virtue of which a body tends to regain its original shape and size after removal of deforming force is called elasticity. Here we should be knowing about deforming force. Deforming force is an external force acting on a body which tends to change shape, size or configuration of the body. And the property of a matter due to which a body tends to regain, this we need to keep in mind, tends to regain, not compulsory to regain, it should have a tendency to regain its original shape and size after removal of deforming force is called elasticity. Means the body having elasticity may not return to its complete original configuration, but it should have a tendency to do so at least. Then it can be said as elastic material. Example for elastic material: steel, rubber, etc. And there is no perfectly elastic material in the nature, but quartz and phosphor branch will be nearly perfectly elastic. And we should remember that elasticity property is related to molecular forces. That is why elasticity is molecular property of matter. Here I would like to mention one more thing, that whenever deforming force is applied to change the state, to change the shape or size or configuration of the body, a new force will be developed inside the body due to these intermolecular interactions. That is called as restoring force. And due to this restoring force, after removal of deforming force, the body tends to come back to its original configuration. So this behavior is due to mainly intermolecular interactions. That is why this elasticity can be called as molecular property of matter. Right. Next, plasticity. The property of matter by virtue of which it does not regain its original shape and size after the removal of deforming force is called plasticity. Means the bodies which will not regain or which will not have tendency to regain their original shape and size after the deforming force are removed, and will continue in this new configuration, new shape, new size, will be called as plastic material, and they are said to have this property of plasticity. Example for such materials is putty dough, chewing gum, and soldering lead. And again, here we should remember that no material in the nature is perfectly plastic, but putty is nearly perfectly plastic material. Right. Then earlier we mentioned that there are bodies which will have tendency to regain their original configuration after removing deforming force. They are called as elastic bodies. But this statement is not true for any value of deforming force. For every material there exists a limit up to which it will show this behavior, and there will be a certain deforming force above which the bodies will not try to regain their original configuration or lose the property of this elasticity. That deforming force or that corresponding stress will be called as elastic limit. So elastic limit we discuss next. So elastic bodies show their property of elasticity up to a certain value of deforming force. If on increasing the deforming force, then a stage is reached when on removing force, the body will not return to original state. The maximum deforming force up to which a body retains its property of elasticity is called elastic limit of the material of the body. And this elastic limit will be depending on the body, and elasticity is property of material of the body. That means if you have two different bodies of different dimensions made of same material, then though the material is same, they will have different elastic limits. This we need to remember. And here one more point we'd like to mention, that when external force compresses the body, the nature of atomic force will be repulsive, and when external forces expands the body, the nature of atomic force will be attractive. Here, nature of atomic forces referring to the forces which are developed inside the body due to the application of deforming forces. So when the deforming force is compressing the body, it means the atoms or molecules of the body are coming closer to each other, and restoring force has to make them move to their original position. That means they should now move away from each other. That means the kind of force that should be between them will be repulsive. The same way, when the deforming force is expanding the body, it is increasing the distance between the molecules of the body. So the restoring force should try to bring them closer. That means the nature of force should be attractive. Next, elastic fatigue. The temporary loss of elastic properties because of action of the repeated alternating deforming force is called elastic fatigue. So usually we know that whenever we apply deforming force on elastic body, after removal of deforming force, body tends to regain its original dimensions. But when you are applying the deforming forces again and again and again, then the material may lose this property of regaining its original dimensions after removing deforming force temporarily. This behavior is called elastic fatigue. And due to this elastic fatigue, we'll declare bridges unsafe after a long time of their use. And also spring balances showing wrong readings after they are used for a long time is an example for elastic fatigue. Then elastic after effect. The time delay in which the substance regains its original condition after the removal of deforming force is called elastic after effect. It is a time for which restoring force are present after the removal of deforming force, and it is negligible for perfectly elastic substance like quartz and phosphor branch, and large for glass fiber. So elastic after effect actually speaks about time gap which is taken for body to regain its original configuration after removal of deforming forces. So if elastic after effect is less, the material is perfectly elastic. If the elastic after effect is more, then the material is plastic. Next, a very important term in this chapter is stress. The restoring force arising per unit cross-sectional area of deformed body is called stress. So whenever we apply a deforming force, restoring force will develop in the body, and that restoring force developed per unit cross-sectional area of the body is generally called as stress. So here stress can be written mathematically as restoring force divided by area, and restoring force is acting inside the body, so it is not possible to measure, to be more exact. So we can write this formula as stress is equal to deforming force per unit area also. This you need to remember. Then types of stress. First one, longitudinal stress. The stress due to which length of the body changes is called longitudinal stress. That means on applying deforming force, if only length of the body is changing, then the stress developed will be called as longitudinal stress. Here, the longitudinal stress is again of different types. First, tensile stress. The stress which causes increase in length of the body is called tensile stress. So due to deforming force applied, if the length of the body is increasing, then the stress is known as tensile stress. If the deforming force is decreasing the length of the body, then that kind of stress is called as compressive stress. And diagrammatically, we can show the action of such forces like this. This is a rod of some length. If the two ends of it are experiencing forces in outward direction perpendicular to its ends, then there will be increase in length of the rod. In that case, the stress developed will be tensile stress. Whereas if again on the same rod, if the forces are acting inward as shown on the two ends perpendicular to the ends, then the length of the body tends to decrease. Then the stress is called as compressive stress. Next, volume stress or hydraulic stress. The stress produced due to the forces which are perpendicular to the entire surface of the body is called volume stress. Application of such forces cause change in volume of the body. Here if you see, we are seeing a cubical block experiencing forces on all faces perpendicular to them. The same way, here is a spherical body which is experiencing perpendicular forces on every point on its surface. This kind of effect is possible when these bodies are kept in contact with liquids or gases. And in such cases, in general, the volume of the body tends to decrease. And in this case, the stress developed is known as volume stress. And this is in general due to the fluids which are in contact with these bodies. That is why it is also called as hydraulic stress. And all these stresses can be also called together as normal stresses, because in these cases the forces acting on the body are perpendicular to the surfaces. Then shearing stress or tangential stress. If the force acting on a body is tangential to the surface of the body, it causes shearing strain in the body, and it is called as shearing stress. See, this is shown in this diagram. Here is a body on whose surface a force F is acting tangential to the surface, and its opposite side is fixed. In that case, this phase on which the force is applied is slightly displaced in the direction of force with respect to this fixed surface, and this angle it is making with its original position is known as shearing strain. And this stress developed in this situation is called as shearing stress. And since the force is acting tangentially on the surface of the body, this stress is also known as tangential stress. Then thermal stress. When both the ends of the rod are fixed in rigid supports and its temperature is reduced or increased, the stress induced in the rod is called thermal stress. Thermal stress is equal to Y alpha delta theta. Make this as alpha, where Y is Young's modulus, alpha is coefficient of linear expansion, delta T is decrease in temperature. And this we can illustrate with this diagram. If you see here, a rod of length L0 is fixed between two rigid supports, and on increasing its temperature, it was supposed to increase its length by this dl amount, but due to these rigid supports, it is unable to. In that case, there is a force that is developed in this rod at the ends, and due to which a stress will be developed. That stress will be called as thermal stress. And here, about this Young's modulus and linear coefficient of expansion, we'll discuss in coming discussion. Coefficient of linear expansion will be discussed in thermal properties of matter. Sorry. Then next, another important term in this chapter is strain. When an external force is applied on a body, its length, volume, or shape change is called strain. It is a ratio of change in configuration of body when deforming force applied to the original configuration of body. It is unitless and dimensionless physical quantity. So whenever we apply a deforming force on a body, we know that either length of the body or volume of the body or shape of the body undergoes the change. In such case, the changes that will be produced are measured in terms of strain. It is in general called fractional change in dimension, fractional change in dimension of the body, or ratio of change in dimension of body to original dimension. So here, depending on the type of change that is produced in the body due to the application of force, the types of strains are there. First one is longitudinal strain. It is a ratio of change in length of the body to original length of the body on application of deforming force. Whatever change in length is produced, if you divide that with original length, you will get longitudinal strain. So in this case, if there is increase in length, the strain can be called as tensile strain. If there is decrease in length, the strain can be called as compressive strain. Then volume strain. It is the ratio of change in volume of the body to original volume, and this will be produced when everywhere on its surface the force is acting perpendicularly, as I already mentioned. So it is a ratio of change in volume to original volume. Then shearing strain. A force tangential to cross section of the body produces change in shape. In that case, the strain produced is shearing strain, and it is equal to the ratio of the displacement of the body with respect to the fixed face divided and the distance between the two faces. So in this case, if h is the, instead of L, if you take h, h is the distance between these two opposite faces, then x is the displacement of this face with respect to fixed face, then the shearing strain can be given by x by h. So it is generally expressed in angle. Next, a very important idea in this chapter is Hooke's law, and from that we define modulus of elasticity. Hooke's law states that within the elastic limit, stress is proportional to strain, or it can be alternately also stated as, for small strains, stress is proportional to strain. So mathematically, stress is proportional to strain. or on removing this proportionality, we can introduce a constant and rewrite this statement as stress by strain is equal to constant, and we are giving it as a symbol capital E, and it is named as modulus of elasticity. And in such case, within this elastic limit, if stress is proportional to strain, the graph between stress and strain is as shown in this figure. It is a straight line passing from REC. Then the modulus of elasticity value depends upon nature of the material of the body and the manner in which the body is deformed. Its value depends on also temperature of the body. Then the value of modulus of elasticity is independent of dimensions of the body. Means it is independent of length, volume, etc. for the body, because it is depending on mainly nature of the material. Then there are three moduli of elasticity, namely Young's modulus, bulk modulus, and rigidity modulus. Bulk modulus usually they have used symbol K. We will continue with it. In some books they will mention that as capital B as well. Then so there are three moduli of elasticity, namely Young's modulus, bulk modulus, and modulus of rigidity, corresponding to three types of strain. Already we studied that there are three possible types of changes that are going to produce. So related to those three changes, we have three moduli of elasticity. So Young's modulus is defined as normal stress to longitudinal strain within the elastic limit or within the limit of proportionality. Or alternately, we can say it as ratio of longitudinal stress to longitudinal strain. And we already know that the stress can be expressed as force by area, and the longitudinal strain is change in length by original length. If small l is change in length and original length is capital L, then small l by capital L is longitudinal strain, and rearranging Young's modulus is equal to capital F into L divided by A into small l. That means deforming force into original length of the body divided by area of cross section into change in length of the body. Then if suppose the radius of the wire is smaller and the force is applied by using a weight attaching to it, then this F can be replaced by mg and A will be replaced by pi r square. Then Young's modulus expression is given as y is equal to mgl divided by pi r square small l. Then next, if the length of the wire is doubled, then longitudinal strain is, see here, if length of the wire is doubled, so initially if length is L, final length is 2L. Then if you want to find longitudinal strain is change in length by initial length, and change in length is final length minus initial length. Then so the longitudinal strain will become 2L divided by 2L minus capital L, 2L minus L divided by capital L. So it becomes 1. So when this we need to remember, because it helps us to answer quickly sometimes in the numericals. Whenever length of the wire is doubled, we can easily take that the longitudinal strain is equal to 1, that is 100% if you express in percentage. And in such case, Young's modulus is equal to stress, because Young's modulus is expressed by stress by strain, stress is equal to 1. So Young's modulus is equal to stress. So we need to remember that whenever we double the length of the wire, in such case the stress which will be developed in the body or the stress required to produce that change will be equal to Young's modulus. Or alternately, the definition of Young's modulus can be said in this way, that Young's modulus is numerically equal to stress which will double the length of the wire. Then next, the increment in the length of the wire or change in length of the wire is expressed in the with the formula L is equal to F capital L divided by pi r square capital Y, where you are using this formula Y is equal to FL by AL. A is replaced as pi r square. Now, if suppose same stretching force is applied for different wires of the same material, then if material is same, then Y is same, and if force applied is same, so F is constant. In that case, L is related to capital L by R square. That means the change in length or increase in length or decrease in length is proportional to original length divided by radius square. That means if this ratio is greater, then greater will be the elongation of wire. Next, elongation in a wire by its own weight. That means without any addition of weight, the wire is increasing in length only due to its own weight. Then the discussion is this way. The weight of the wire is mg. It is acting at the center of gravity of wire, so that the length of the wire which is stretched will be L by 2. So here, since the center of gravity of a wire is lying at the midpoint, so the weight which is acting only shows its effect only on the upper half of the length. If you think that the wire is suspended and weight is acting downwards, so this weight will be acting or showing effect only to the half of the length. That is why here we should consider the original length to be L by 2 and the force applied to be mg, and proceed to find the elongation. So elongation L is equal to, small l is equal to F capital L divided by AY. F is mg and capital L is L by 2 as we discussed earlier. So which will be, now this elongation can be expressed as mg capital L divided by 2AY, or also you can use this formula of mass is equal to volume into density, and in this case volume is equal to area of cross section into length. So substituting all those values, we'll get elongation L is equal to L square dg divided by 2y. Here d is the density of wire. So elongation of a wire by its own length is given by L square dg divided by 2y, where L is the original length of the body, total length of the body, and d is the density of the body, g is acceleration due to gravity, y is Young's modulus. Next, work done in stretching a wire. In stretching a wire, work is done against the internal restoring forces. This work is stored in the wire as elastic potential energy or strain energy. And the energy stored in the wire is expressed as capital U is equal to 1 by 2 times YA small l square divided by capital L, or you can also express it as 1 by 2 into FL. That means if there is F force used to produce small l elongation, then the energy stored in the body is equal to 1 by 2 times FL. 1 by 2 times FL. Then divide this expression on both sides with the volume of the wire. In that case, we will get energy stored per unit volume of wire, or energy density. So if you divide it with the volume of wire, then we end with this expression: UV, energy density per unit, or energy per unit volume, is equal to 1 by 2 times F by A into small l by capital L. F by A is stress, small l by capital L is strain. So energy stored per unit volume is equal to half into stress into strain. Or you can also use the formula Young's modulus is equal to stress into strain to write this expression as energy per unit volume is equal to half into Young's modulus into strain square, or it is also equal to half into stress square by Y. Okay. So all this information means the expressions of total energy stored in wire or total energy stored per unit volume of different kinds are mentioned in this table. You can go through it. Next, breaking of wire. When the wire is loaded beyond elastic limit, the strain increases much more rapidly. The maximum stress corresponding to B. Okay. In the stress strain curve, we discuss this stress strain curve ahead. You just keep in mind the maximum stress corresponding to B in stress strain curve, after which the wire begins to flow and breaks, is called breaking stress or tensile strength of the, and the force by application of which the wire breaks is called breaking force. Okay, leaving out this part, we'll discuss all the things later. So all the things now, this we come back later. So we need to remember that when you apply a force which is more than elastic limit, then the strain will increase at a rapid rate and the wire begins to break. So this stress or this force is called as breaking force, and the stress developed in this case is known as breaking stress or tensile strength. And the breaking force depends upon the area of cross section of the wire, because breaking force is equal to breaking stress into area of cross section in another way. Because we know that stress is equal to force by area. If you want force, it can be called as, it can be taken as stress into area. That is why here we are writing breaking force is proportional to area, or we can also write breaking force is equal to P into A. P is a constant of proportionality. It is also called as breaking stress. Breaking stress is constant for a given material and it does not depend on the dimensions of the wire. This you need to keep in mind. Breaking stress is constant for a material. Means you may have a thin rod of copper or thick rod of copper. Breaking stress is fixed for them. This, for example. Then, if a wire of length L is cut into two or more parts, then again each part can hold the same weight, since breaking force is independent of length of the wire. Keep in mind when you are thinking of cutting the wire of length L into two or more parts. In general, it is along the length. So when you are changing the length, there is no change in area of cross section. Hence, the breaking force will not change. But if the same wire is cut in such a way that its area of cross section is modified, then the breaking stress would be different, right? If a wire can bear maximum force F, then wire of same material but double the thickness can bear the maximum force 4F, because the breaking force is proportional to R square. Here thickness of the wire will be nothing but 2R. Thickness of the wire will be nothing but 2R. That's why using this formula we can write breaking force is proportional to pi R square and the breaking force is proportional to R square. So if R is doubled, sorry, if 2R is doubled, if 2R is doubled, then the force will be 4F. The next, the working stress is always kept lower than that of breaking stress, so that the safety factor, that is breaking stress divided by working stress, may have a large value. So this is for machinery parts. When there are machinery which will be subjected to large forces during their working, that they to avoid their damage, the stress should be always less than breaking stress. So that the material is safe. So here the ratio safety factor will be very important. Safety factor is the ratio of breaking stress to working stress. Right. Next, breaking of wire under its own weight. We know that breaking force is equal to breaking stress into area of cross section, and here breaking force itself here as we mentioned is own weight of the body. So weight of the body we can express as mg, which we can also write as ALDG. ALDG, that is area of cross section, length, volume, density, and acceleration due to gravity. Now this LDG is taken as P here. LDG is taken as P. So weight of the body is expressed as P by P into A. So we know that LDG is equal to P, but now I want only L. L is the length of the wire at which the breaking will take place. So L is equal to P by DG. P by DG. Then next, bulk modulus. When a solid or fluid is subjected to uniform pressure all over the surface such that the shape remains same, then there is a change in volume V minus delta V. Then the ratio of normal stress to volumetric strain within the elastic limit is called bulk modulus. This is denoted by K. So K here is normal stress by volumetric strain. As already I have mentioned, normal stress is a general term. Normal stress can be related to changes in length, changes in volume. So in this case, we can particularly say this as volumetric stress also. And in this case, K is equal to normal stress divided by volumetric strain. Normal stress is F by A, which also can be written as pressure. And then volumetric strain can be expressed as minus delta V by V. Minus is referring that the volume is decreasing here. So on rearranging, we will get K is equal to minus PV divided by delta V. Here P can be also said, P is taken as increase in pressure. So in some cases, we can also use this P as delta P. Next, the reciprocal of bulk modulus is called compressibility. The reciprocal of bulk modulus is called compressibility, and the unit of compressibility is per Newton meter square, or meter square per Newton in another way, and CGS unit is centimeter square per diagram. And you need to remember that all the moduli of elasticity will have SI units of Newton per meter square, CGS unit of dyne per centimeter square. Then gases will have two bulk moduli, namely isothermal elasticity and adiabatic elasticity, or else isothermal bulk modulus, adiabatic bulk modulus. They are here taken as E theta and E phi. Isothermal elasticity, E theta first. Elasticity possessed by possessed by a gas in isothermal condition is defined as isothermal elasticity. In isothermal process, we should remember that PV is equal to constant equation can be applied. Now differentiating on either sides, we get PdV plus VdP is equal to 0 by applying the product rule. So simplifying, we get PdV is equal to minus VdP, or P is equal to, capital P is equal to dP divided by minus dV by d, minus dV by V. Here dP is increase in pressure, which is also nothing but volumetric stress, and minus dV by dV, minus dV by V is volumetric strain. So this is nothing but a ratio of volumetric stress to volumetric strain. That means in this case, this pressure is equal to bulk modulus in isothermal condition. So isothermal elasticity or isothermal bulk modulus is equal to pressure acting on the gas. Then next, adiabatic elasticity. Elasticity possessed by the gas in adiabatic condition is defined as adiabatic elasticity. And for adiabatic process, you should be knowing that PV power gamma equation will be followed by the gas. So on differentiating on either sides, we get now P gamma V power gamma minus 1 into dV plus V power gamma into dP is equal to 0. Now on taking this V power gamma minus 1 common and sending it this side, we get gamma P dV plus V dP is equal to 0. Here gamma is a ratio of specific heats of gas. Then now we have gamma P is equal to dP divided by minus dV by V. As already we know, this ratio is equal to bulk modulus. So this is the bulk modulus in case of adiabatic condition. So gamma P is equal to adiabatic elasticity or adiabatic bulk modulus. This you need to remember. So adiabatic bulk modulus or adiabatic elasticity is equal to gamma times the pressure, and gamma is in general greater than 1. So if you take the ratio of adiabatic to isothermal elasticity, it is gamma which is greater than 1. That means always adiabatic elasticity is more than isothermal elasticity. Now moving ahead, modulus of rigidity. Within limits of proportionality or within elastic limit, the ratio of tangential stress to shearing strain is called modulus of rigidity of the material of the body, and it is denoted by eta. So eta is equal to shearing stress by shearing strain. In this case, the shape of the body changes, but its volume remains unchanged. See, in earlier cases, there is changes in dimension, but in this case, there will be no change in dimension, but only there will be change in shape. Now, consider a material fixed at lower face. Consider cube of material fixed at lower face and acted upon by a tangential force at F at its upper face, having area capital A. Then the shearing stress will be F by A. The shearing force causes the consecutive horizontal layers of the cube to be slightly displaced or sheared relative to one another. Each line such as PQ or RS in the cube is rotated through an angle phi by this shear. The shearing stress strain is defined as an angle phi in radians through which a line normal to a fixed surface has turned. For small values of angle, shearing strain is equal to QQ dash by PQ. From figure, QQ dash is X, PQ is L. So eta is equal to F by A divided by phi or F by A phi. And only solids can exhibit a shearing as they have definite shape. Means for liquids and gases, this shearing stress is not defined, or shear modulus is not defined. This modulus of rigidity is also known as shear modulus. Next, a very important point to note: greater is the modulus of elasticity, greater is the stress developed. That is, greater is the restoring force. This we can say for a given deforming force particularly. So if you apply the same deforming force, Then if material has more modulus of elasticity, then more restoring force and more stress are developed. And such a body is called more elastic body. That is why steel is called more elastic than rubber, because its modulus of elasticity is more than that rubber. Means whenever you are given it a question to find which body is more elastic, it is very simple to know that the modulus of elasticity is more means the elasticity is more, means the material with high modulus of elasticity will be more modulus. This we need to keep in mind. Next, a very important aspect of this topic is stress strain curve. If by gradually increasing the load on a vertically suspended metal wire, a graph is plotted between stress or load and longitudinal strain or elongation, we get the curve as shown in the figure. So this is a stress strain curve. This also can be sometimes taken as load extension curve. Now, when the strain is small, that is less than 2%, that is in the region OP from the diagram, stress is proportional to strain. This is a region where the so-called Hooke's law is obeyed. That means from O to P, stress is proportional to strain. And in this region, the strains are very small, very less than 2%. So on removal of deforming force, body come back to original configuration. Then the point P here is called proportionality limit or limit of proportionality. And the slope of curve in this limit, within this part, is going to give us Young's modulus of the material. So if theta is a slope, means theta is an angle with horizontal for this straight line or for this curve, then Young's modulus in this case is equal to tan theta. Then next, if the strain is increased a little bit, means beyond this P, if the strain is increased, then in the region P, the stress is not proportional to strain. However, the wire still regains its original length after removal of stretching force. This behavior is shown up to the point E, which is known as elastic limit or yield point. So the region OPE represents the elastic behavior of the material of the wire. So from P to E, if you see this material curve, sorry, the stress strain curve, it is not a straight line, but it is slightly curved part. It is indicating that from P to E, the stress is not exactly proportional to strain. But with increase in stress, with increase in strain, the stress will increase, or with the increase in stress, strain will increase. But till point E, the material is withstanding its elastic behavior. That means till E from O, anywhere if you remove the external force, the body come back to its original configuration. So from O to E, the material is showing elastic behavior, and this region is known as elastic region. Next, if the wire is stretched beyond the elastic limit E, that is between EA, the strain increases much more rapidly. And if the stretching force is removed, the wire does not come back to its natural length. Some permanent increase in length takes place. So from E to A, in this region, with small change in stress only, the strain will increase very rapidly and the body will not come back to its original length on removing the deforming force. Then, if the stress is increased further by a very small increase in it, a very large increase in strain is produced in the region AB. And after reaching B, the strain increases even if the wire is unloaded and ruptures at C. If in the region BC, the wire literally flows. So from A to B, even with very small increase in stress, the strain will increase very highly. And after B, even without any stress, the body increases its dimension. That means the length of the body will increase, or strain will increase. And finally at point C, the body will rupture or the wire will break. That means here from B to C, the wire is literally flowing. That means without any application of force itself, the body is increasing its dimensions. Then the maximum stress corresponding to B, after which the wire begins to flow and breaks, is called breaking or tensile strength. The region EABC is called, represents plastic behavior of the material of the wire. Now earlier we have got a reference to this stress strain curve and point B earlier while discussing the breaking stress. Here you can understand what is it. So at the point beyond point B, the wire is starting to flow, and then after that finally it breaks. So the maximum stress the body can withstand is this B. So this stress corresponding to point B is called ultimate tensile strength or breaking stress. And the region EABC is representing the plastic behavior of the material. Next, using this stress strain curve, we can classify the materials, or we can identify the materials whether they are brittle or ductile or elastomers. So the firstly, brittle material. The plastic region between E and C is small for brittle material, and it will break soon after the elastic limit is crossed. That means these materials will have small plastic region and will break very soon after the elastic limit is crossed. That is why these materials cannot be used to draw thin wires. Then ductile material. The material of the wire have a good plastic range, and such material can be easily changed into different shapes and can be drawn into thin wires. So if the material has large plastic range, then it will stretch very long before it finally breaks. Hence, this behavior can be used for bending, means can be easily, this behavior can be used for changing the wire into different shapes and to draw it into thin wires. Gold is one example for ductile materials. Then elastomers. Stress strain curve is not a straight line within elastic limit for elastomers, and strain produced is much larger than the stress applied. Such materials have no plastic range and breaking point lies very close to elastic limit. For example, rubber and elastic tissue of iota. Means for such elastomers, the stress strain curve is not a straight line, because always, even within elastic limit, the strain produced is very large than the stress applied. So the material can be extended to several times of its original length if they are elastomers. This you need to keep in mind. Next, Poisson's ratio. When a long bar is stretched by a force along its length, then its length increases and radius decreases, as shown in the figure. This is a figure. There is a rod of radius r and length L. On increasing the length of, on application of force F, as shown here, the length of the rod is increasing to L plus dl, and the radius is decreasing to r minus dr. So in this case, there are two changes in dimensions. So correspondingly, we will have two kind of strains in this case. One is called lateral strain, another is called longitudinal strain. Lateral strain is a ratio of change in radius to original radius, and longitudinal strain is the ratio of change in length to original length, as we already know. Here we define an important term called Poisson's ratio, which is a ratio of lateral strain to longitudinal strain. That is, Poisson's ratio is equal to minus dr by r divided by d capital L by L. So this ratio of lateral strain to longitudinal strain is called Poisson's ratio, and in this expression, negative term indicates that the radius decreases when it is stretched. And this Poisson's ratio is a dimensionless and unitless quantity, and its practical value is lying between 0 and 1.5, sorry, 0 and 0.5, but theoretical limit is -1 to +1. Next, these are the points which will help us solving the numericals quickly for us. If you remember, for two wires, if Young's modulus is equal and force are equal, if y1 is equal to y2 and f1 is equal to f2, then change in length is proportional to L by r square. So if you want to find the ratio of changes in length, delta L2 by delta L1 is equal to L2 by L1 into r1 square by r2 square. That means if two wires of same material and same external force is applied on them, then ratio of changes in length is equal to ratio of changes in length in the same order into ratio of square of radius in opposite order. That you need to keep in mind. See here, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2. This you need to refer. Then for two wires, if y1 is equal to y2 and L1 is equal to L2, that means if two wires of same original length and same material are there, then the ratio of the change in length is proportional to applied force divided by r square. And in this case, the ratio of this elongation for two wires, delta L2 by delta L1 is equal to f2 r1 square divided by f1 r2 square. This you need to remember. Next, we should know that all these three moduli of elasticity, Young's modulus, bulk modulus, and rigidity modulus, will decrease with increase in temperature. Next, the restoring torque produced in a wire having twist theta is tau is equal to pi eta r power 4 theta divided by 2L. So when you twist a wire, there will be restoring torque developed in the body. That restoring torque is given by this expression. Tau is equal to pi eta r power 4 theta divided by 2L, where L is the original length of the wire, eta is the rigidity modulus, theta is a twist angle which is produced in the wire, and r is radius of it. Then the factors that affect elasticity. First one, hammering and rolling. Crystal grains break up into smaller units by hammering and rolling. This results in increasing the elasticity of material. Then annealing. The metals are annealed by heating and then cooling them slowly. Annealing results in decrease in elasticity of material. Then temperature. Intermolecular forces decrease with rise in temperature, hence elasticity decrease with rise in temperature. But elasticity of inverse steel does not change with change in temperature or change very negligibly with a change in temperature. Then impurities. Due to impurities in a material, elasticity can increase or decrease. The type of effect depends upon the nature of impurity present in the material. Right. So these are the factors that are affecting the elasticity. Hammering and rolling increase the elasticity of material because in that case crystal grains will break up into smaller units. Annealing decreases the elasticity because on annealing the crystal grains will be found actually. Then due to temperature the intermolecular force decreases, hence elasticity will decrease. Then due to impurity the elasticity can increase or decrease depending on the nature of impurity that is added. Okay. Yes, friends, that is it. Thank you.